Hello and welcome back to Build and Teach. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to create Pandas data frames. Now, if you remember from the data structures tutorial, the data frame is the most common data structure in Pandas. A data frame is a two-dimensional labeled tabular structure that supports multiple types in one column. So each of these columns can support multiple types. So the two-dimensional has to do with the column labels. So this would be the x-axis, and the index labels, this would be the y-axis. So as you can see, a data frame is basically a table. To create a data frame, you use the data frame constructor. It takes as input data, so the data that you're going to have within your columns. It takes the index labels, so you can supply the index labels. If you don't supply the index labels, it'll just use numeric labels starting at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. It supports column labels. Again, if you don't provide column labels, it'll create them for you. Again, numeric ones, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it accepts data types, so you can specify the data types per column. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to create an empty data frame, how to create a data frame with random values, how to create a data frame from a Pandas dictionary, from a Python dictionary, from a Python list, from a local CSV file, from an online CSV file, from a local JSON file, and from an online JSON file. So let's get started. So to create an empty data frame, you just need the data frame constructor. So you import pandas as pd, data equals pd.dataframe, and then you just print your data frame. You can see here that it creates an empty data frame with no column data and no indexes. It didn't create the numeric ones because you don't have data, so that has nothing to really fill in. Within here, let's create a data frame with random values. So sometimes if you don't have any data and you just want to mess around with Pandas data frame, you can create one out of random values. And I did that here using the random int method of numpy. So I imported numpy as np, import panda as pd. I have a variable here, random data frame equals pd.dataframe, np.random.randint, with a floor of 20 and a ceiling of 100, so values between 20 and 100, and a size of 6 by 6, so it's a 6 by 6 matrix. I've also specified my index labels, so the y0 to y5, and my column labels x0 to x5. If I run this, you can see that it creates a 6 by 6 matrix with values within the matrix between 20 and 100, random values between 20 and 100. So you can see here, this right here is a data frame of random values. Now, if I wanted to create a data frame from a from a Python dictionary, there's two ways to do it. I can take a row-based approach where I specify the data in the rows one by one, or I could take a column-based approach where I specify each column and its data one by one. So here, this is the row-based approach. So let me run it so you can see what's going on. Within the row-based approach, I create a list of dictionaries, and the first row would be Houston, right? So I have city as my label or key, right? Key value pairs in the dictionary. So it becomes a label, right? So city, Houston, Monday 99, Tuesday 90, Wednesday 100. So you can see each one of these dictionaries creates a row in the data frame. So the way you create a data frame with a Python dictionary using the row-based approach is you simply add the list of dictionaries as your data value within the data frame. So you can see here, I pass this weather list of dictionaries to my data frame, and it creates rows for me. If I had column data instead, I wanted to specify the columns of the data frame. I could do the same thing using a dictionary where I specify each column and its data. So the first column will be city. So you see Houston, Dallas, El Paso, Houston, Dallas, El Paso. And then the next column would be Monday's weather, Monday 99, 11099, and then Tuesday's weather, and then Wednesday's weather. So that's how you create a Pandas data frame using a Python dictionary in the column-based approach. Now you can do the same exact thing with lists. So you can do the row-based approach for lists, right? So you create a list of lists where I specify my first row, Houston 99, 11099, Dallas 90, 90, 100, and then I specify the columns in a separate list. So to create a data frame from a Python list using the row-based approach, I would use the from records method of the data frame, right? So I have here, I have my weather, so this is the data, row-based data. I have my columns, this is a list of my columns, and I use data equals pd.dataframe from records, where I pass the data first, right? And then I specify the column, data.columns equals col. And you can see here that it creates this data frame. If I didn't specify the columns, if I just went and just brought in the data, you can see what happens in the data frame is it creates the columns for you using numeric values. You can see 0, 1, 2, 3. But if you know what your columns are, specify the columns in the list and pass it to the columns attribute of your data frame. And you can see here, it now creates your columns. If you were going to go the column based approach instead of the row based approach, you would specify each of your columns, both your columns and your index, plus the data within each column. So here I have my columns, city, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have my city, so the very first column would be city, and I would say Houston, Dallas, El Paso. The data for Monday, the data for Tuesday, the data for Wednesday, and then I would call the pd.dataframe to create an empty data frame, and then I would specify each column. So my first column would be city, and I would pass the city data. See, so this is a very similar approach to what we did in the first part of this tutorial, where we created an empty data frame, and now we're filling the data frame. So in order to create columns in the data frame, you just specify the column name, data, and then the column name, and then you pass the data to it. So city, then the next column would be Monday, and I pass the data for Monday. Next column would be Tuesday, pass the data for Tuesday. The next column would be Wednesday, and I pass the data for Wednesday. So you can see this is a pretty intuitive way to create a data frame column by column. Create an empty one first, then create your column label, add data to it, then the next column label, add data to it, the next column label, add data to it. Pretty simple. In the next lesson here, we're going to learn how to create a data frame from a local CSV file. So if I go to my home directory, let me see, what was the name of that? It was called city temps. But if I go to my home directory and I look for citytemps.csv, you can see here that I've created a CSV file with my labels, city, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then my rows, Houston, Dallas, El Paso. So this is a local CSV file. So to create a data frame from a local CSV file, you use the pd.readcsv method here, and you pass it your local CSV file. And this will create a data frame off your CSV file. You can see if I go back to the CSV file, it uses your first row as your columns, and then your second, third, and fourth row, first, second, and third row as your data. So pretty simple. Read CSV, and you pass a CSV file to it, and it'll create your data frame. To create a data frame from an online CSV file, you just have to reference the URL of that CSV file. So here I have a GitHub URL in which I put the same citytemp CSV in my GitHub, and then I pass that value to the read CSV, and it does exactly the same thing. So it treats it kind of like a local file, but only you're referencing an online file. If I wanted to create a data frame from a JSON file, let me go to my citytemps.json, and that is here. And I'll include these files in the lesson resources, so you can have them as well. So here I have created a JSON in which I have city, and then I have the data within city. And notice I have my indexes here. So I have Houston, Dallas, El Paso, then Monday's data, Tuesday's data, and Wednesday's data. So in here, to read a local JSON file, use the pd.readJSON and pass the file name to it, and it will create your data frame from a JSON file. Pretty simple, just one line of code, and you've created a data frame from a data set. To do the same thing with an online JSON file, you do the same thing as a read CSV. You pass the URL of the JSON file to the read.json method, and it will create your data frame from an online resource. Try these out. We've learned 3, 6, 8 ways to create a data frame. Pretty simple. In the next tutorial, we'll learn how to analyze this data frame. And remember, as usual, there are text instructions at the end of this video. Thanks.